he kneeled on my two arms. I couldn't move, and had his arms around my neck, and I thought that he was going to strangle me to death. And at that point, I did think that I was going to die.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to 30 Years and Running. I'll be your host, Christian, and each week my friends and I will be looking at life seen through the eyes of 30-somethings. Whether it's things like dating, social media or mental health, we'll be looking at the past, present and future of being in your 30s. Welcome to 30 Years and Running. We have got a new guest in the flat today. We've got Paris on the couch. How are you?
I'm great, thank you.
Good, glad to hear it. So, today is a very serious issue, but I guess it's a very important one. So, we're going to be talking about domestic violence. And Paris is a survivor of domestic violence, of your own admission, I guess. So, I guess before the episode starts, a bit of a trigger warning for people, because we might be talking about some stuff which, will trigger some people, obviously. So, I mean, just to start off with, let's talk, or let's start from the beginning in terms of the relationship that you're in, and I suppose, how did it escalate into kind of domestic violence, and just tell me a bit more about like the relationship to start with, and how things kind of like went south, I guess.
Okay, so I was in a relationship for nearly 14 years. And previously, before then, I was in a relationship that was abusive as well. I was on a break in that relationship. I was very young. And then I had slept with this person that I had known for a little while. And when I slept with them, I became pregnant. We then didn't have any contact until I was 9 months pregnant. And then I gave birth to my beautiful daughter. And there came a relationship from it. And we was together ever since then. And I initially first met him and decided that, having this baby was a great way to escape the abuse that I was in previously. And it was only probably a short time after, about a year, and that's when the relationship became abusive, and we ended up having fights. And so it was very early on. I was about 18 then.
Yeah, that's I mean, it's obviously tough at any age, but especially when you're as young as that's a lot to deal with. And the thing I was going to say as well, which again we can talk throughout the episode, I guess, is, when I was thinking about domestic violence, my mind naturally kind of went to the physical side of things, but it's a lot more than that, right? It's kind of physical, it's emotional, can be sexual as well.
Yeah, of course. And just going off of what you said, I mean, unfortunately, I have experienced nearly all sides of domestic violence, physical, emotional, and I can confidently say neither one is better than the other or worse than the other. They both have their own sort of, they're both damaging, if you like. Even to sexual abuse, I've experienced it all, but it's...
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like, and we were speaking off camera about this, it's just quite hard to for me to process. I think, don't get me wrong, I completely understand the plight of it, but I think it's just hard for me to kind of process like how you can be in a relationship with someone who, you've given them a child, and I'm sure you probably love them at some stage as well, and they can kind of treat you so badly, physically, emotionally, kind of sexually as well. So I just wanted to like dig a bit deeper into that, I suppose.
Yeah,
if you like, as much as you're comfortable with,
I'm
I suppose.
Absolutely fine
in terms of
about it.
in terms of just some of the different instances that you might have had. Again, only as much as you're comfortable with, in terms of like the physical abuse and any other abuse that you might have faced as well.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, my childhood had a lot to play within me accepting the behaviour in what I did as an adult. So I would just say quite honestly, I was sexually abused as a child from the age of 5.
Gosh.
And then again by my father when I was 12. And these are really quite heavy things. And when they aren't dealt with correctly, unfortunately, they are then led on to your adult life. And as a result of that, I had no boundaries as to what I accepted for myself. I wasn't given the care that I needed or the support that I needed at the time to allow me to build healthy relationships, which is why I probably was so accepting of the what happened in my relationship later on in life.
Because I guess that's so. Firstly, that is like awful. Like that's like probably one of the most unimaginable things that I can think of. But I guess to your point, like that's all you know.
It's
I
all
suppose.
I knew, yeah.
So it's kind of like, in a way, it's almost unsurprising that
it was my normal.
Yeah.
So for me, it's not. It might seem strange to somebody else, but for me, it's not even shocking because that is how I grew up. That was in a strange way. Not that I seeked comfort in it, but it was my normal, and it played immensely on my self-worth and my self-esteem. So I didn't have the foundations there to set myself a higher standard into the behavior that I was willing to accept from other people.
Yeah. And also, again, we were talking off camera about this, I suppose, but on average, I think I read a stat around it takes people, at least on average 7 times, or it takes them 7 times to kind of like leave their partner,
to leave finally.
Yeah. And so the reason I wanted to bring that up, I guess, is, when you hear about domestic violence cases, like there's a really kind of lazy question that people tend to ask, which is, well, why didn't you leave? And I think just thinking about your own childhood and your own kind of normal perception of this, again, it's kind of not surprising that I don't know how long you were in the relationship with this person, but like it's almost kind of unsurprising that you didn't leave for so long because like you said, you're kind of accepting of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was 14.
It was normal
nearly just
14
short
years.
of 2 months of 14 years.
Damn, yeah.
It was a long time, and during that time, like you said, I'd left. And he'd left. I think about over 7 times it was. And I hate when people say, not yourself, but I hate when people say, oh, just leave, or why didn't you just leave? Because normally when someone experiences abuse, they're already very weak. And just leave, just to say just leave, it sounds so simple, and it can make someone feel extremely weak when you say, oh, just leave, or why didn't you just leave? When in actual fact, it takes a very strong person to just leave.
And that's, sorry to interrupt, I was going to say, and that's why it's probably hard for me to process, because it's like, I'm not in that situation. I don't, I don't have that emotional connection to that person, and I haven't been through the trauma that you've been. So it's very easy for me to kind of sit on my ivory tower and say, not that I do think this, but like for some people to say like, why didn't you leave? When you can't really, I don't think you're qualified to say that unless you've kind of been through the things that you've been through.
I think sometimes, I ask myself the question, why didn't I just leave? But the fundamental thing of it came down to, I absolutely loved him. And there was no doubt in my mind that I loved him, so much so that I was able to push things aside. And I wanted to have this family unit, which only actually truly existed within my head. And I was willing to do whatever it took to try and fulfill that need that I wanted.
Was there anything, I mean, don't get me wrong, like love's a massive kind of pull in this situation, but was there anything else that that kind of kept you going back? Was it just fear? Was it like fear for your own safety? Was it the fact that he had manipulated you so much that you're completely isolated from friends and family? Was it all of the above? Or was
It was
just
a
the
little
pure
bit of
kind of like...
a mixture of everything. But I think what it came down to was that I loved him and I really wanted to have a family that was that what society seems as normal. You know, have a mum and a dad and you know, essentially have this family. But I never actually really had that, because underneath what I was posting on Instagram and stuff was very much that. But the reality of it was it never was that. It never was love. And actually, people that love you don't hurt you. And it's only in coming out of that I am able to see that.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And just on the family point as well, I was just going to say, so you've got daughters, right? How, and again, as much as you want to talk about this, I guess, like how has this kind of all, I suppose, affected them, I suppose, and, you know, have they seen it firsthand, or, you know, have you spoken to them and things like that, really? Because it's obviously, you know, you've spoken about it, how it's affected you personally, I guess, but like, how does it affect your family?
Yeah, and of course it affects children. I mean, so I have a daughter who's 14 now, and I'm a legal guardian of my niece who I adopted. She's 5 and she's just like me.
Crazy.
Something like
Joking,
that.
joke. I mean, I'm not.
Do you mean absolutely amazing?
I mean,
Christian,
absolutely
she is.
fucking bananas. But it's all good.
Yeah, she's quite eccentric.
Yeah.
She's a great character. So back to what I was saying, Christian.
Sorry, I've shut up.
That's okay. So with regards to the 2 children, and actually, like what you say, had they ever seen it? No one had ever seen it. Not even. I was never hit in front of anyone. It was a very private sort of thing. It wasn't something that was done in front of anyone. I was shouted at twice in these 14 years in front of our daughter that we share together. But apart from them 2 times, it was always done either when we was on holiday together or when we stayed at a hotel together.
Right.
It was, or when no one was at home. Which, looking back, makes me think it was even more calculated.
So, yeah, I was about to say.
And was able to control it. And you know, it was strange, you know, looking back, and I find it quite confusing. But as to the impact of the children, I think for my 5-year-old, she's unaware of the situation. She has never been there, and it's quite separate. But for my daughter, you know, she has seen bruises on me. I've slept in a tent where I've been covered in bruises. So she is completely, I have no doubt that she's aware, no matter how hard I tried to hide it. You know, and of course this is going to affect her, so I have to support her through that, and to know that we're strong women, or we're going to grow into strong women, and, you know, she'll have all the support that she needs. As regards to support, she currently goes to therapy, and that's done on a weekly basis, and we talk about our issues. We're very open as a family. I think sometimes it doesn't reveal how much it has affected you until later on in life, but just the fact that she knows that, and both of them know that I'm always going to be there for them, and I'll always try my best and support them, and I think that's just the main thing.
I think that's all you can do, right? I suppose, like, just be there for them, and just know that they've always got their mum around. Come win, rain or shine, really.
I'll be there whether they like it or not.
Shout out to you, because do you know what it is as well? I was just thinking, like, I just don't know how, like, people, whether it's mostly women, obviously, when it comes to domestic violence, but then I suppose also some men as well, like, just how they continue to persevere and put on a brave face and continue being mums or even dads for their kids when, you know, behind closed doors, like you say, or, you know, on holiday or whenever, you're suffering,
you're surviving,
you're surviving, but then, you know, I don't know what it was for you, but, like, if you had anybody to confide in, or, you know, if you spoke to any like organizations like Refuge and stuff like that, like what, like I suppose whilst it was, I suppose where I'm trying to get to with this is like, whilst this was happening, like, how did you cope? Like, did you have like coping mechanisms, so to speak, to deal with this, or is it just kind of like you were rolling with it?
I absolutely did have coping mechanisms, and they were absolutely crap, you know.
Go on, let's hear them.
They were just to try and ignore it.
Yeah.
Number one was just, you know, you've been through worse. I knew what I'd been through as a child, and I always survived it. I'm a survivor. I'm a fighter. I know essentially anything that was happening, I could push it to the side. I was wrong, because it came out in different other ways.
And sorry, just quickly on that as well, not to like psychoanalyze you and stuff like
No,
that. Like
okay.
the whole ignoring thing as well. It feels like that's kind of rooted in your childhood, because like that's what you do when you're a child.
What my mum, and also that's what my mum and dad tried to do when they found out that I was being sexually, that I had been sexually abused. They tried to ignore it, because it was embarrassing for my family.
Yeah, and
then I
probably didn't want to own up to the truth as well.
Yeah, I carried that subconsciously through to adulthood, and it became one of my coping mechanisms in order to just push my needs aside and just plow through.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not a coping mechanism.
I mean, you say that, but I feel like humans, we just revert back to like type in terms of, you know, what are the things that comfort us in not even tricky situations, in like dangerous situations and things like that. So I do think it's a coping mechanism. Maybe by your own admission, it's not the best coping mechanism.
I mean, it's not, because it comes after a while. There's only it's like a glass of water. You can keep pouring all these things into it, you know, that you're trying to hide, and then all of a sudden it overflows and you have no control.
Yeah.
So it's not a coping mechanism that should be sort of advertised as being great.
Yeah, of course. But sorry, I don't mean like
it's just coping with it.
Yeah, it's just a coping mechanism in terms of like.
But
I
it's not healthy.
No, it isn't. But I'm sure if you spoke to like a therapist or something like that, they'll tell you to deal with it a different way. But
absolutely.
I suppose my point is like, you can't. If you don't have that knowledge, I suppose, like, what else are you supposed to do? Like, for example, I wouldn't, not to make it about me, but like, I wouldn't know how to react and cope in that situation. So I think it's only natural that you do something which, you know, you've been programmed to do from childhood, really.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you've got the whole ignoring aspect of it. Was there anything else? Was it, because I think whenever I've heard about domestic violence, I think one of the coping mechanisms is, funny enough, for anybody who's listening, you can't actually see this, but I just picked up my glass of wine. But like wine, not wine specifically, but like alcohol, drugs, the more kind of the other end of the more volatile end of the spectrum, some people use that as a coping mechanism. Does that ever happen to you, or is that...
Okay, so, sorry, Mum.
Pause. Mrs. Paris, you don't need to talk about this, by the way.
No, it's okay. Like, I'm really honest and open about it, and I've got my thoughts, you know.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's an excuse, but yeah, you know, I was a head chef at the time as well, and I don't know if you're aware, but a lot of chefs do have drinking problems. I did turn to drugs. I had a very bad cocaine addiction. And it was just, at the time, I even I told myself how happy I was and that I was fine. And people used to say to me, well, why'd you take so much drugs? Or why'd you drink so much? And I just said, well, I'm just happy, I'm fine. When in actually, looking back at it, I was completely falling apart. And it was just another way to hide it. It was another way to sort of...
ignore it.
Ignore it yet again. I can comfortably say, even though I'm drinking a glass of wine now, I do not take any drugs, and anything that I choose to drink now is by my choice and limited. Yeah,
and again, like I'm sure you'll probably say, like, by your own admission, this isn't the best coping mechanism, but it isn't. But at the same time, again, I don't blame you for it, to be honest, because it's what else are you supposed to do if, you know, you feel like you're completely isolated from friends and family, if you feel like you've got nobody to talk to, and, you know, ignoring things only gets you so far. Like, I'm sure with stuff like cocaine and drink, it kind of numbs the pain a little bit as well. So
Well, it
again,
helps,
I'm not
it helps you to
not surprised by
it
it.
helps you to ignore the reality of what you're going through.
Yeah.
And that is the honest truth. I'm ashamed to admit that that is what I turned to, because I saw drug addiction throughout my whole family, and I swore to myself that that's something that I would never do. However, I did it, and it led to a dark path, and I can now see from coming out of it that that is not the person that I am. I'm not an alcoholic. I'm not a drug addict. It was, like you say, a coping mechanism.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm very lucky to be that strong, to sort of come out of it and understand that. I'm very grateful.
Yeah. And I suppose just on that point as well, I guess now that you're kind of out on the other side and you're kind of looking back on the whole situation, I guess,
Yeah.
what are the kind of the things that you feel like you've learned, or what are the things that you feel like, you know, if I'd had the knowledge, or if I had the tools, or maybe it's the confidence, or whatever it might be, like what are the things which you kind of look back and just think, actually I wish I did this, that and the other, I wish I kind of did things differently, if that makes sense?
It makes sense, but I don't live my life in regret.
Fair enough.
There's nothing, I know it might seem strange, you know, I've lived a wobbly path, if you like, but there is nothing in my life that I would have changed. You know, sometimes I do feel guilty, mainly for the children. But there isn't anything in my life per se that I would have changed, because I wouldn't be the woman sitting here now.
Sure.
And I wouldn't, like you say, what have I learned? And this is why I don't regret it, because I've learned so much. It's a tough lesson to learn.
I mean, it's got to be one of the toughest lessons
But
you
my
can learn.
God,
Like, Jesus.
I'm very grateful, and it's given me a sense to even hopefully for another woman to realise that there is light at the end of the tunnel, and life does go on, and there is hope out there, and you can be the strongest version of yourself. And the biggest lesson that I've learned is self-love.
Yeah.
Because when you have that, you have boundaries, you set yourself, you know your worth, you have all these things that are so beautiful that would not allow you to accept that behaviour. And I have never had self-love. I'd never even heard of it. You know, I mean, I didn't even know it existed. And from finding self-love, I've been able to move my life on and to inspire my children and to teach them about it. And so and that's beautiful.
That is. And like part of the reason why I wanted to do this episode with you as well is to, like the main reason actually is to try and help people who might be in this, or who might have been in a similar situation to you have been as well.
Yeah.
So like, even if we can, or even if your words can help like one person, I think it would be worth it.
Course.
And the other thing that I wanted to just highlight as well, which I hope you don't mind me saying actually, but so like on your Instagram, for example, like you've done a few different videos of you speaking about abuse and talking about how, I suppose, talking about your road to recovery, I guess.
Yeah.
And depending on how you feel about this, like I'm happy to put your Instagram so people can like follow it and stuff like that. But I just wanted to like give you a shout out for that, because I thought that was really brave. I know I messaged you like the first video that you did, but I just think it's really brave that you're kind of literally kind of bearing your soul to the world, essentially. Yeah, to the world.
I know.
And telling,
it might
like,
be only be
literally,
600 followers, but they're my tribe.
Nah, listen.
Shout out to them.
Yeah, shout out to Paris's followers. No, but I just think it's really cool, and I think it's really really brave as well that you've literally kind of like I say, bared your soul, aired his dirty laundry, should I say, in efforts to try and help other people as well. So like, just a bit of a tangent, but I just wanted to give you a shout out for that.
Thank you very much. But when you said just now aired his dirty laundry, this was nothing about airing anyone's dirty laundry.
Sure.
And this is such a thing. What I'm really passionate about is that as a society we have built domestic violence to be a private matter, when in actual fact it's a very serious crime, and it's not about airing dirty laundry. It's actually serious crimes that are committed, and 2 women a week die at the hands of their partner or ex-partner. 1 in 4 women will experience domestic violence throughout their life, and unfortunately 3 people a week commit suicide due to domestic violence. So this is not about airing dirty laundry. This is not a private matter. This is and this is where I think we go wrong as a society, because we're seen to, if something happens within our house, we have to hide it. Absolutely not. To protect what? So that it can continue going on? No.
Yeah. Can I ask a super personal question? And
Go
again, feel free.
Let me just take a swig of
Sorry,
mine.
take a swig of the Pinot. And again, feel free not to answer this as well, but just some of the stuff that you just mentioned there. Did you ever fear for your life off the back of the abuse that you suffered in that relationship?
Yes, absolutely. I think it was in August where
August last year, do you mean? Or
August last year. We went to a wedding, and after we went back to the hotel room, and he kneeled on my 2 arms. I couldn't move, and had his arms around my neck, and I thought that he was going to strangle me to death. And at that point I did think that I was going to die. And it's one of the reasons as to why I have 0 contact now, because I know if he didn't kill me at one point, I probably would have killed him.
Gosh, that's pretty intense.
It's very intense. Yeah.
And I suppose, just for you personally as well, did you ever feel like suicidal off the back of that? Because it's a lot. I mean, not just specifically that incident, but like just in general. That incident, plus I'm sure that the years of mental abuse that you're on the receiving end, and sexual abuse maybe as well. So, did you, like, just for you personally, did you ever feel, I just don't really want to do this anymore?
Of course, numerous times. So prior to that, I mean, it kind of hurts my heart to say this. But prior to that, he had yet again, I wasn't in my house. He begged me for like 3 hours to come outside of my house. And eventually I gave in. My intuition and my angels told me, don't you dare go outside. And I did. And he drove me to a car park. He repeatedly punched me in my face, and I was choking on my blood. And I couldn't speak, and he raped me, and that is something that will live with me forever. I'm not able yet to forgive him for that. I hope one day I can, but I can't just yet. And that made me feel extremely suicidal. And also, even leaving him made me feel suicidal, and I felt that I genuinely felt that I couldn't live without him. And knowing that, I'd been with someone for this amount of time, I didn't even know who I was, as my own person. He had broken me down that much. And I'm quite a strong person, and for me to admit that takes quite a lot. But of course, I naturally had suicidal thoughts. In fact, I was with my friend that evening, and I told her I was.
Sorry, you don't have to speak about this if you don't want to.
That's okay. I can talk about it. I was with my friend, and I told her that I was going to kill myself and drive my car on the motorway, and luckily she hid my car keys from me, and she locked all the doors, and I'm here to tell the story.
And it's a beautiful thing that you're here as well. So
I wouldn't have it any other way.
Come here, I just want to give you a hug, to be honest.
Oh, thank you.
I know this is going to sound weird, but I'm so sorry for what you've gone through. But also,
okay.
At the same time, I'm so glad that you're in a much better place, and I'm so, again, this is a weird thing to say, I'm so proud that you've come out of it the other side, and
Yeah.
you know, it's a lot to talk about this stuff, obviously, but I feel like you've talked about it in such a dignified way. And, you know, you're always happy and smiling whenever I see you, and cracking jokes and stuff like that. So,
You can't break a good spirit, Christian.
Yeah,
it's impossible.
I know. No, I just so I should have said this at the start already, but I just wanted to thank you for coming on and talking about your own experiences, because, you know, it's obviously a really kind of difficult thing to talk about. Excuse me. And then, like I say, I just wanted to just shout you out, man, and just show you, I'm really proud that you've been through a lot of shit, man, and you've come out and you're still smiling. You're doing your inspirational videos on social media. You're trying to inspire other people who might be going through a similar situation. So I'm raising a glass to you. Cheers. Because shout out to you. Because again, to circle back on what I first said at the start of the podcast, it's just like, I just can't fathom it, to be honest. And I just can't fathom how somebody could go through so much shit and just come out the other side and still be smiling and still be, you know, willing to talk about the experiences and still be a great mum and that kind of thing. So yeah, shout out to you.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank
very
you for
welcome.
having me.
No worries. Just before we finally leave, I guess. Sorry, last.
Sorry, let me just take another.
Sorry, I know.
God,
sorry, I should.
What is this question?
Yeah, no. So no. This. I think we need to end this on a positive note, right? So, I suppose the one thing, like we kind of talked about before, that I feel like I want to get out, or we should get out of this episode, I guess, is just like how other people in a similar situation can kind of deal with this and stuff like that. So I guess on that basis, like, have you got any advice for anybody who's going through a similar situation to what you face? Like, any advice that you can kind of give to them in terms of like how they might either cope or how they might kind of deal with the situation?
So for me personally, I mean, although I've gone through my own personal struggles, I don't feel that I'm at a place where I could possibly give advice.
I think you underestimate yourself. I mean,
I mean, if I was to give anyone any advice, it would be to know that, you know, one day you'll be strong enough, and one day, not only will you be strong enough, you'll be able to make the right decision at the right time, when it's right for you and when it's safe to do so. And you just got to believe in yourself, and if no one else believes in you, I do.
Here, you heard it from Paris herself. If you don't believe in yourself, Paris does. So
I do.
There you go.
I do, absolutely.
No, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching 30 Years and Running. Please subscribe, comment and share. See you next week. Peace.